The words hit me like a physical blow to the chest. I think I can do better. I sat there on our threadbare couch, chopsticks frozen midway to my mouth, pad thai growing cold in my lap, staring at the man I had loved for 3 years. The man I had given everything to. The man who had just casually destroyed my entire world while Netflix played some mindless comedy in the background. Nick did not even have the decency to look uncomfortable. He was scrolling through his phone, probably already browsing dating apps, as if he had not just delivered the most devastating blow of my 26-year-old life. What? I whispered, my voice barely audible over the canned laughter from the television. He finally looked up, his expression annoyed, as if I were interrupting something important. Come on, Sarah. You had to know this was coming. We have been together for 3 years, and what do we have to show for it? You are still working retail, you have gained weight, you never want to go out anymore. You are just so comfortable. Comfortable. The word felt like poison on his tongue. I thought comfortable was good. I managed to say, my throat closing up with unshed tears. I thought we were happy. Nick shrugged, a gesture so casual it felt like another slap. Maybe you were happy, but I want more than this. I want someone who challenges me, someone who has ambition, someone who takes care of herself. You have just kind of let yourself go. Let myself go. I looked down at my body, the body he used to worship, the body he used to tell me was perfect. Had I gained weight? Maybe 15 pounds over 3 years of contentment, of cooking together, of lazy Sunday mornings in bed. I thought that was what love looked like, growing comfortable with someone, building a life together. Apparently, I was wrong. So that is it? I asked, my voice stronger now, fueled by a growing rage that was slowly overtaking the heartbreak. 3 years and you are just done? Because I am not skinny enough for you anymore? Because I am happy with my job. It is not just about the weight, he said, but his eyes told a different story. It is about who you are as a person. You have no drive, no ambition. You come home from your little retail job and just want to watch TV and order takeout. That is not the kind of woman I want to build a future with. The kind of woman. As if I were a commodity, a product that had failed to meet his standards. What kind of woman do you want? I asked, hating myself for asking but needing to know. His eyes lit up, as if he had been waiting for this question. Someone successful. Someone who takes care of her body, who has goals, who inspires me to be better. Someone who turns heads when we walk into a room together. Someone who turns heads. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it, but the sound stuck in my throat. This was the man I had been planning a future with, the man whose name I had practiced writing with my last name. The man I had been saving money to surprise with a weekend getaway for his birthday next month. And he was breaking up with me because I was not trophy-worthy enough. I see, I said quietly, setting my takeout container on the coffee table with hands that somehow managed not to shake. So when you said you loved me, what exactly did you mean? Nick looked genuinely confused by the question. I did love you. I do love you. But love is not enough, Sarah. I need someone who matches my energy, my ambition. You are sweet, do not get me wrong. But sweet does not build empires. Empires. This from a man who worked in middle management at a tech startup and spent his weekends playing video games. But I did not point out the irony. Instead, I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady beneath me. Well then, I guess there is nothing left to say. Come on, do not be dramatic, Nick said, his attention already drifting back to his phone. We can still be friends. You are a good person, Sarah. You will find someone who appreciates that. Someone who appreciates that. As if being a good person was a consolation prize, something to settle for when you could not get the real thing. I walked to our bedroom, what had been our bedroom for the past year and a half, and closed the door behind me. Then, and only then, did I let myself collapse. I cried until my eyes were swollen shut, and my throat was raw. I cried for the future I had imagined, for the love I thought was real, for the woman I apparently was not good enough to be. I cried until there were no tears left, until I was empty of everything except a strange, cold clarity. Nick was right about one thing. I had become comfortable. I had settled into a routine that felt safe and predictable. I worked my retail job at a boutique clothing store, came home to cook dinner and watch TV with my boyfriend, spent weekends sleeping in and running errands. I had been content with contentment, happy with happiness. But contentment was not enough for Nick. Happiness was not enough for Nick. And maybe, I realized with a start, it was not enough for me either. I spent that night lying awake, staring at the ceiling while Nick slept soundly beside me as if nothing had changed. As if he had not just blown up our entire relationship over pad thai and reruns. I listened to his even breathing and tried to remember when I had stopped dreaming about my future and started just existing in my present. When had I stopped being the girl who wanted to change the world and become the woman who was grateful just to pay her bills on time? When had I stopped believing I deserved more? The next morning, Nick left early for work without saying goodbye. He took 2 suitcases and promised to come back for the rest of his things later. I watched him go from our bedroom window, feeling strangely detached from the whole scene, as if I were watching someone else's life fall apart. After his car disappeared around the corner, I did something I had not done in years. I looked at myself in the full-length mirror. Really looked. I saw a woman who had been hiding. Not just physically, though Nick was right about the weight gain. But emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I had been playing small, living small, dreaming small. I had convinced myself that wanting more was greedy, that being satisfied was noble. But maybe Nick had done me a favor. Maybe he had shown me something I had been too afraid to see. I was not living up to my potential. Not even close. That day, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. Instead of going to the store to fold clothes and process returns, I sat at my laptop and made a list. Not a list of what I had lost, but a list of what I wanted to gain. I wanted to be financially independent, not just financially stable. I wanted to be physically strong, not just physically acceptable. I wanted to be intellectually stimulated, not just intellectually comfortable. I wanted to be creatively fulfilled, not just creatively satisfied. I wanted to be emotionally resilient, not just emotionally safe. Most of all, I wanted to be proud of myself. Really, genuinely proud of who I was and what I had accomplished. By the end of that day, I had a plan. The first thing I did was delete every app from my phone except one, Duolingo. If I was going to transform my life, I needed to eliminate distractions and focus on growth. The constant scrolling through social media, the mindless games, the shopping apps, all of it had to go. Instead, I would learn Spanish. It was something I had always wanted to do, but never made time for. Every moment I would have spent scrolling through Instagram, I would spend building a skill instead. The second thing I did was quit my retail job. My manager, Helen, was shocked when I gave my 2 weeks' notice. "But you are one of our best employees," she said. "You are so reliable, so steady." Reliable. Steady. The same words Nick might have used to describe why he was leaving me. "I appreciate everything you have taught me," I told Helen. "But I need to try something different." I had been working in retail for 4 years, ever since I graduated college with a degree in graphic design that I had never used. At the time, the job at the boutique had seemed like a good temporary solution while I figured out my next move. But temporary had become permanent, and permanent had become a trap. It was time to break free. The third thing I did was move out of the apartment Nick and I had shared. I could not afford the rent on my own. And even if I could, I did not want to stay in a place that held so many memories of my smaller self. I found a tiny studio apartment across town, barely 400 square feet, with thin walls and a kitchenette that was more kit than kitchen. It was all I could afford on my savings, but it was mine. Completely, utterly mine. The day I moved in, I stood in the center of my empty studio and made a promise to myself. I would not leave this place as the same person who had entered it. The transformation began immediately. I woke up at 5:30 every morning and was at the gym by 6. Not because I wanted to lose weight to win Nick back. I had no interest in winning back a man who had discarded me so callously, but because I wanted to feel strong. I wanted to know what my body was capable of when I pushed it, challenged it, respected it. The first week was brutal. My muscles ached in places I had forgotten I had muscles. I could barely run for 5 minutes without getting winded. But I kept showing up day after day, because every drop of sweat was proof that I was changing. After the gym, I would come home and work on building my freelance graphic design business. I dusted off my portfolio, updated my skills through online courses, and started reaching out to potential clients. The first few months were lean. I was living off my savings and the occasional small project, but I could feel momentum building. I treated my evenings like sacred time. Instead of watching TV or scrolling through my phone, I read books. Business books, self-development books, biographies of women who had built something from nothing. I listened to podcasts about entrepreneurship and personal growth while I cooked simple, healthy meals in my tiny kitchen. Every night before bed, I practiced Spanish on Duolingo and wrote in a journal, tracking my progress and setting goals for the next day. I asked myself the same question every night. What would the best version of me do tomorrow? And then I would do that thing, no matter how uncomfortable or challenging it felt. The changes started small but compounded quickly. Within 3 months, I had lost 20 pounds and gained visible muscle definition. I could run 3 miles without stopping. My skin was clearer than it had been in years, thanks to a strict skincare routine and better nutrition. But the physical changes were nothing compared to the mental ones. I started to feel capable in a way I had never experienced before. Every challenge I overcame, every difficult client, every plateau at the gym, every Spanish conjugation I finally mastered, proved to me that I was stronger than I had believed. My freelance business began to grow. What started as small logo projects for local businesses evolved into comprehensive branding packages for startups. I was working longer hours than I ever had at the retail job, but it did not feel like work. It felt like building something, creating something, becoming something. 6 months after Nick left, I landed my first major client. A tech company that needed a complete visual identity overhaul. The project paid more than I had made in 3 months at the boutique, and when the CEO sent me an email saying my work had exceeded all their expectations, I cried tears of pure joy. I was good at this. Really good. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was using my full potential instead of just a fraction of it. But I was not done yet. I started networking, attending industry events and women's business meetups. At first, I felt like an imposter among all these successful, confident women. But as my business grew and my confidence grew with it, I began to contribute to conversations instead of just listening. I shared insights, offered advice, made connections. 1 year after the breakup, I was featured in a local business magazine as one of the city's rising stars under 30. The article included a professional photo of me that I barely recognized. The woman in that photo was polished, confident, radiant. She looked like someone who had never doubted her worth, never settled for comfortable, never been told she was not good enough. She looked like everything Nick had said I was not. The article led to speaking opportunities. I was invited to talk about entrepreneurship at women's conferences, to share my story of transformation and growth. Standing on those stages, looking out at audiences of women who were hungry for inspiration, I felt a purpose I had never experienced before. I was not just building a business anymore. I was building other women up, showing them what was possible when you refused to accept limitations, especially the ones imposed by other people. My social media following grew exponentially. Women from all over the world started reaching out, sharing their own stories of being told they were not enough, asking for advice on how to start their own transformations. I began offering online courses, teaching other women how to build freelance design businesses, how to develop unshakable confidence, how to turn their pain into their power. 18 months after Nick walked out, I was profiled in Forbes as one of their 30 under 30 entrepreneurs to watch. The article was titled From Retail to Revenue: How One Woman Built a Six-Figure Business After a Devastating Breakup. I kept a copy of that magazine on my desk, not because I was proud of the recognition, though I was, but because it reminded me how far I had traveled from that broken woman crying on her bathroom floor. 2 years after Nick left, everything changed again. I was invited to be the cover story for Next Woman, a magazine dedicated to female entrepreneurs and leaders. The photo shoot was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Professional hair and makeup, a team of stylists, a photographer who made me feel like a supermodel. When I saw the final images, I gasped. The woman on that cover was powerful, successful, radiant. Her eyes held a confidence that had been earned through struggle and growth. Her smile was genuine, not performative. She looked like someone who had faced her demons and won. She looked like someone who could never be convinced she was not enough. The cover story detailed my journey from heartbreak to success, but it focused more on the lessons learned than the pain endured. I talked about the importance of using rejection as redirection, of viewing obstacles as opportunities, of never letting someone else's opinion become your reality. The magazine hit newsstands on a Tuesday. By Wednesday, my phone was ringing nonstop with interview requests, speaking opportunities, and business propositions. My website crashed from traffic. My inbox was flooded with messages from women who said my story had inspired them to make changes in their own lives. I had become the woman I had always been capable of being. I just needed someone to tell me I was not good enough to find the motivation to prove them wrong. That Friday, as I was working late in my new office, I had outgrown the studio apartment and now had a beautiful loft space that served as both my home and my business headquarters. My phone buzzed with a notification. A direct message on Instagram. I almost ignored it. I got hundreds of messages a day now, and while I tried to respond to as many as possible, I could not keep up with the volume. But something made me open this one. It was from Nick. My heart stopped. He had sent me a screenshot of my dating profile. I had started dating again 6 months earlier, though nothing serious had developed yet, along with a message that made my blood boil. LOL, I guess you glowed up. So, wanna grab coffee? No apology. No acknowledgement of how he had treated me. No recognition of the pain he had caused or the growth I had achieved in spite of him. Just a casual invitation. As if the past 2 years had been some kind of extended makeover montage designed to make me worthy of his attention again. The audacity was breathtaking. I stared at the message for a long time, feeling a familiar rage building in my chest. But this time it was different. This time, the rage was not mixed with hurt or self-doubt. It was clean, pure, righteous. This time, I knew exactly who I was and what I was worth. I typed my response carefully, choosing each word with precision. You still cannot. Then I blocked him. Not out of spite, though I would have been justified in feeling spiteful. Not out of hurt, though the memory of his cruelty still stung sometimes. I blocked him because I no longer needed to prove anything to him, or to anyone else. I had already proven everything I needed to prove to the only person whose opinion truly mattered, myself. I was the woman on magazine covers now. I was the woman other women looked to for inspiration. I was the woman who had built a multiple 6-figure business from nothing but determination and refusal to accept limitations. I was the woman who had taken the worst thing that ever happened to her and used it as fuel to become the best version of herself. Nick had thought he could do better than me. He was right. He could have done better. If he had been a better man. If he had been the kind of man who saw potential instead of flaws, who offered support instead of criticism, who understood that love meant growing together instead of growing apart. But he was not that man. He was the kind of man who discarded women when they no longer served his image, who confused depth with drama and comfort with complacency. He was the kind of man who would always be searching for something better instead of appreciating what he had. And I was the kind of woman who no longer needed his approval, or anyone else's to know my worth. 3 months after blocking Nick, I received an invitation that made me laugh out loud. It was a wedding invitation, not Nick's, but from my college roommate who had kept in touch with some of our mutual friends. Nick would be there, she warned me in a text, and she wanted to make sure I was comfortable attending. I RSVP'd yes without hesitation. The wedding was beautiful, held at a vineyard outside the city. I wore a dress I had designed myself, a stunning navy blue number that had been featured in a fashion blog the month before. My hair was styled in an elegant updo, my makeup was flawless, and I felt absolutely radiant. I arrived fashionably late, just as the cocktail hour was beginning. The moment I walked into the reception area, conversations stopped. People turned to stare, and I could hear whispers following in my wake. Is that Sarah? She looks incredible. Did you see she was on the cover of that magazine? I moved through the crowd with confidence, accepting compliments graciously, catching up with old friends, genuinely enjoying myself. I had worried that seeing Nick again might bring back painful memories, But as the evening wore on, I realized I felt nothing but indifference toward him. He was just another person at the party now, no more significant to my life than any other acquaintance from my past. I was standing at the bar, ordering a glass of champagne, when I felt someone approach from behind. Sarah. I turned around, unsurprised to find Nick standing there. He looked older, softer around the edges. His hairline had receded slightly, and there were stress lines around his eyes that had not been there 2 years ago. "Hello, Nick," I said politely, accepting my champagne from the bartender. "You look?" He paused, clearly struggling for words. "You look amazing. Really amazing." "Thank you," I said, taking a sip of my champagne. "You look well too." He laughed nervously. "I saw your magazine cover. And the Forbes article. I had no idea you were so successful." "Neither did I said honestly. "It turns out I was capable of more than either of us realized." Nick shifted uncomfortably. "Listen, Sarah, I owe you an apology. The way I ended things between us, the things I said, that was not fair. You did not deserve that." I studied his face, looking for sincerity. I found it, along with regret and what looked like genuine remorse. "No," I agreed. "I did not deserve that. I was an idiot," he continued. "I threw away something real for some fantasy of what I thought I wanted. I hurt someone who loved me, because I was too immature to appreciate what I had." It was the apology I had dreamed of receiving 2 years ago, the acknowledgement of his mistakes that I had desperately needed to hear. But now, listening to his words, I felt nothing but a mild sense of closure. "I appreciate you saying that," I told him. "Truly. But you do not need to apologize to me anymore, Nick. You actually did me a favor." He looked confused. "A favor?" "You showed me that I was settling," I explained. "For a relationship that was not pushing me to grow. For a life that was not challenging me to become my best self. If you had not left, I might never have discovered what I was truly capable of." "So you are not angry?" I considered the question seriously. I was angry for a long time. Hurt, devastated, furious. But anger is exhausting, and I had better things to do with my energy. I chose to channel all that emotion into building something beautiful instead of dwelling on something broken. Nick nodded slowly, processing my words. "Are you happy? I mean really happy?" "Happier than I have ever been in my life," I said, and meant it completely. "Good," he said, and I could tell he meant it too. "You deserve to be happy, Sarah. You always did." "Yes," I agreed. "I always did." We stood there for a moment in comfortable silence, two people who had once meant everything to each other now existing peacefully in each other's past. "I should get back to my date," Nick said finally, gesturing toward a blonde woman across the room who was watching our conversation with obvious concern. "Of course," I said. "It was good to see you, Nick. Take care of yourself." "You too, Sarah. And congratulations on everything you have accomplished. You really are incredible." After he walked away, I remained at the bar for a few more minutes, reflecting on the conversation. 2 years ago, an apology from Nick would have meant everything to me. It would have validated my pain, confirmed that I had been wronged, possibly even opened the door to reconciliation. Now, it was simply a nice gesture from someone who no longer held any power over my emotional well-being. I had not become successful to prove him wrong, though that had been satisfying. I had not transformed my life to win him back, though he clearly regretted losing me. I had done all of it for me, because I had finally understood that I deserved better than settling for comfortable. The rest of the evening was wonderful. I danced with old friends, caught up with former classmates, and left early to prepare for a morning flight to New York, where I had been invited to speak at a major entrepreneurship conference. As I drove home through the city streets, I thought about the woman I had been 2 years ago. The woman who had sat on that couch, eating takeout and accepting the devastating news that she was not good enough. The woman who had believed that someone else's opinion of her worth was more accurate than her own. That woman was gone, transformed so completely that she felt like a character from someone else's story. In her place was a woman who knew her value, who had built something meaningful from nothing, who inspired others to reach for more than they thought possible. A woman who had learned that the best revenge was not proving your critics wrong, but proving yourself right. A woman who no longer needed anyone's permission to take up space in the world. I was that woman now, and I would never go back to being anyone else. 6 months later, I was invited to ring the opening bell at Nasdaq, celebrating the launch of my digital design platform that connected female entrepreneurs with creative services. Standing on that platform, looking out at the cameras and the crowd, I felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for my success, but for the journey that had led me there. Every obstacle had made me stronger. Every rejection had redirected me toward something better. Every moment of doubt had ultimately reinforced my determination to prove that I was capable of more than anyone, including myself, had ever imagined. Nick had said he could do better than me. He was absolutely right. But what he did not understand was that I could do better too. Better than his limited vision of what I could become. Better than the small life I had been living. Better than I had ever dared to dream. And now, standing at the pinnacle of everything I had built from the ashes of that devastating breakup, I knew with absolute certainty that the best was yet to come. Because when you finally understand your worth, when you finally refuse to settle for less than you deserve, when you finally commit to becoming the person you were always meant to be, there are no limits to what you can achieve. Nick thought he was too good for me. It turned out I was too good for him. And that realization had set me free to become everything I was meant to be. If this story of transformation and triumph inspired you, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share powerful stories of women who turned their pain into their power and their setbacks into comebacks. Hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments about a time when someone underestimated you and how you proved them wrong. Remember, the best revenge is always becoming the person they said you could never be.